Howdy folks, this is 2D Gaming. Just to make sure that we got this right, we gonna give me something. There we go. Now that you know it's me, boop, on to the video. Today we're going to be going over one of the most bullshit projects that I've ever helped with. Just to remind anyone who has, seen this machine before, I am not the inventor. I am just the guy that made it somewhat better. I am not the original creator. I would go to FollyFiend, not my ass. I'm just a dude who did a thing. Anyway, so before I get into the main machine, we gotta go over one of the segments. This bullshit right here. This entire fucking thing is one segment, the entire machine. Well, what is this machine that you must be talking about? That would be a fucking keyboard. This bullshit right here is an entire keyboard. So, to explain things. First things first, if you don't understand how an item filter works, time to learn. Because that's exactly what these fucking things are. Now you might be wondering, well, how do you get things to go up through this? Easy. Water streams and minecarts. The minecarts go into the fucking middle. Can I get a fucking hot tip, please? Thank you. Those are then pushed against, I don't know, fucking lightning rods or some shit. The point is to center them evenly without either of them, getting in the way of the bullshit that is water. Now, I'll keep the introduction to this thing short and sweet and to the point. So, to make it easier, to comprehend on every way that I can, you have two sets of binary on either side of this. This can go from A to Z, from 1 to 9, or hell, you could even have it do addition and subtraction, as long as you, program the keys correctly. But this entire thing revolves around one very fucking weird mechanic, and that is wallstone. If I go ahead and let's just grab a fucking wooden trapdoor. I was to do this. That would update that observer, and that can send a signal through an activator rail or a dust trail. I use activator rails because you can have them go parallel to one another, like you see here. Like all this, all that. Activator rails are one of my favorite fucking things to work with, because they don't require as much fucking gold, i.e. they require fucking none of it. But those keyboards are meant to work with junction boxes like this. I'll get into junction boxes later. And then subsequently, I'll also get into sculpt lines within this same video. Anyhow. So, the orange here represents the filter itself. So, the hoppers, we all understand. They have 5 slots, and they can, be lag reduced by using a composter or a pot. Now, the greatest mechanic of all time is these little bastards right here. These are the decorated pots. These can hold up to 5 of one specific item, which triggers this fucking shit right here. Now, what the pots are going to be holding is 5 of the named keys. So if I come over here and I grab, let's go ahead and grab A. So this has 5 of the letter A. Every single pot should contain 5 keys. If it does not contain 5 keys, then you are stubborn, I guess, is the word that you could say. But the rest of this machine requires one of 2 things: a whole lot of patience and a whole lot of items. Because this entire thing would need to be built by hand in survival mode, and I've only like copy pasted this segment here 3 times, and then the rest I had to build by hand, except for like the filling of this bullshit, because I didn't want to do that, and the filling of those copper bulbs. So you have your item filter that locks this hopper once 5 is in the pot. Every time one item leaves the pot, this torch turns off and allows this to flick. Now, why would anyone want this fucking machine? And that is because people like computational redstone. So, I'll get into the next part, and that is the actual UI itself. So, I have a set of 4, 1, and 1. Now, I'll go over each of these in just a second here, but I want you to take notice all those hoppers going through. Each of these hoppers goes into one of these, allowing us to type cleanly and freely. This is the input area. I have a little keyboard right here. I like the oxidized copper look. It's really nice. Anyway, what's I saying? Right, so each of these has their own purpose. This is the cylinder cycling as well as the auto cycle function. Now, the auto cycling happens every time you enter in a letter. It lets you know, hey, the system has functioned, you timed everything correctly. When it doesn't cycle, or doesn't flick on, is when you have to go to that right there. And just give it a little bit of a pulse. Just give it a pulse. Just a wee pulse. And then you're fine. I'll probably install a button later on, but I'm not going to do that right now, because I relatively know how things are timed. But this is our letter recall system. Every time you type in a letter or a symbol, this pulses with 5-digit binary that is encoded into the wallstone by those trapdoors that I mentioned earlier. Each one of these has a binary output: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and so on. Now, this wall right here had plenty of extra room. So we have C down here, we have space, period and comma, and this is enter. The single little dude right here is enter. If I were to type in something like hello world, then all of that would be able to transfer through these lines, through these observers, which, yes, this is going to get very observer expensive, into these copper bulbs. These copper bulbs would then be able to hold that data until they get to this fucking thing. This is an auto erase function as well as a message sending function. Let's go ahead and type out hello world. Go ahead and watch for the cycling cylinder there. H E L L O space W O R L D period. There we go. So, as you can see here, this says HELLO space WORLD period. Now, if I were to allow this to cycle, let's go ahead and get a tick speed. There we go. That would allow this entire thing to cycle exactly to where it needs to go. Just watch those lights there. Off, 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 and so on and so forth. And this will continue until that yellow there reaches the original spot where the message began. You'll see right there. The reason why it's able to cycle around so perfectly, which if I go ahead and type in another enter, is because of a specific timer circuit developed by a friend of mine as well as myself in order to help with a modded Minecraft, Let's Play with a nuclear reactor. We needed something that was reliable. So we had this fucking thing. This is a timer. This entire timer takes a stack and 37 items to cycle around this many copper bulbs as quickly and as non-staticky as possible. These do require some delay to allow for fucking things to cycle properly. So otherwise things are gonna like misfire and misclick and all that. At least as far as I'm seeing right here. There is a smaller version, but I traded the smaller version out for this so that I could type out longer messages. Now, the auto erase function was fucking difficult to say the least. The original way that I figured it would go would be using as little redstone pulses as possible. Turns out, I forgot that we have copper grates. Copper grates can hold water. And I was like, oh wow, there's water. Wait, there's water. Observers can see block changes, which means that they can see when a block is flooded. Ooh. a floated block. I can use that as a signal interpreter. Meaning things just have to be able to be locked, and then I can activate things. So what I did is this. Every time one of these gives off any kind of, like, power output, comparator takes it, pumps it through into, this fucking dispenser here, and it either dispenses or it retracts the water. It doesn't do anything else. It either dispenses, retracts the water. It allows these observers to fire only once. Now, they do sometimes have to fire twice because, we'll keep typing out the same fucking letters over and over again. But that's not an issue. That's not an issue at all, actually. So, these will allow for the erasure as well as the sending of a message. Meaning that you can type out an entire message, and as long as you press enter, this entire thing will cycle once. However, that does not mean that you can just type for all of eternity and not expect your messages to be interpretable. I've yet to make, a screen capable of having the binary on there. That's currently one of my future projects. But right now is not that time to figure that out. But the reason why I was trying to make this, nice and compact is actually so we could use these. These are calibrated skulk sensor telecommunications lines. These allow for sets of 5-digit binary data, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as read and as write. As you can see, these breaker boxes here are very specific. This is write, that is read. Now, if I were to be a troll and commit a fucking felony, actually I would say felony, because I'm not Hassan Piker. You would see that all of these are now locked. All of those are now on. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Oop. Oh, is it too far? Okay. There it goes. But that allows us to input and output at specific frequencies. Which means that I can select at any time which one I'd like to use. Now, I will still likely be requiring this thing to activate, these little lights over here. Except for the one that, it's powering. But that's not an issue. That's not a problem. I'll still be fucking around and finding it. Either way. So, why keyboard? And specifically, why these specifically? Well, because people love to build base terminals, plural, and those bitches can be really laggy. And this is one of the horizontal designs of, that thing over there. It's not very good. This one's good. This one's not. But people really like building large bases. And I figured, having a multiplayer based computer that can help you out with like logistics if you're part of a guild or some shit like that, depending on, your preferences of playstyle, you can have a brand new terminal, both for input and for output. But you would need something for the input. So I queried with FollyFiend, original designer, not me, about, potentially having like some kind of UI that could help with that. And he's like, yeah, I got a keyboard up and running. I think I showed it to you on Reddit. Oh, okay, I'll check it out. I saw it on Reddit. Fuck yeah. Let me go ahead and show you the original design here. So this is FollyFiend's design. I measured his design for him so we could, compare. This is his design. He figured out how to make all this and have it actually function. The only thing is, it's quite chunky, and it takes up a lot more redstone dust than it should have. But that's not an issue, because that's what my shit does here. As you saw in the previous one, you would see little designs like this. This was my original keyboard design. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's not very good. Now, why is it not good? Because that shit over there would fucking lose things and become a problem that I didn't want to fix. I was stupid and filled everything in manually. Whereas, for this one, I figured out the control middle click button. Which, yeah. Go ahead, laugh it up. Come on, guys. I figured out how to actually make the UI perfectly. So, what did I do? Well, that's simple. I did a great many things to try and figure this shit out quickly. So, I'll go over everything except for the rainbow color. Orange is your filter. Red is your trapdoors. White is your cycling. Light gray is your enter key. Purple is your sent message. Dark blue is your cycling. Black is your timer circuit, which helps with the cycling. Down here is another blue, which is part of a separate system, which helps with this, the auto dropping system. It is relatively slow, but it's fine to me. I tried to keep this thing as compact as possible, but I don't think I did a really good job. This shit's still very unsquoshed. But one of its key features is being able to have an invalid syntax. So if you accidentally drop your sword, your pickaxe, or whatever into the system, the invalid syntax, which would be, you know, all the things are not keys, all those things come back, fall through that powder center right there in just a second. There it goes. And pops up right here. You can replace this hopper line with a water line, the hopper at the end, but I'm lazy as fuck right now, so that's a no for me. Anywho, so I'll go into further detail. So first things first, everything starts at the UI. We have a QWERTY layout. UI O and P are right below it, since we only have 3 slots here. And I don't feel like putting U I O P right there. So that'd be dumb. Then you have ASTIF and all the rest. CXCV, etc. You have comma, period, your space bar, your enter key. These have 3, just in case if you misclick. And it allows you to have these 3 tries of invalid syntax, which lets it come into here. Otherwise, all these other keys are going to fill it up. And that's not good, because it'll just spam nothingness into the void that is the Sculpt Towers. Now, the best feature of this is, as long as you keep typing, it'll keep being able to send. Meaning you need only to type out like a long ass thought. If you wanted to send a supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, you could do that. You could send the longest word in the English, German, French, Spanish, whatever dictionary, and be able to understand it on the other side. The only potential downside is that you would have to trade out the extra keys here for specific characters. Like if you have more than 26 characters and you are not equipped, then that's a no. Now, if you are typing in another language and you want to keep the English keyboard usable, then you need only type in, you know, the language that you're trying to describe. So if you were to type in RUS, that would be Russian. If you were to type in UKR, that'd be Ukrainian. ESP, Espanol. FRC would be French. ENG would be English by default, etc., etc., so on and so forth. Like you could type out the entirety of the Big Bill Hell's Cars meme, and it would be able to fucking transmit forever. Which is a hilarious prank. You could even type in the B-movie script on this thing, and it would not tire out. The only thing that would tire it out would be your wrist, and that is it. Imagine typing out the entire B-movie script And only being able to read it in Minecraft binary, that'd be fucking hilarious. Anyway, but how did I get this timer to make that yellow block stay where the fuck it was after sending? Well, simple. I used /tick freeze, and then I timed it with a timer with full amount of blocks. And then I simply halved the timer. Because the longer it took for those repeaters to activate is the more time that I have to spend. Because redstone ticks and game ticks are not the same. Redstone ticks are not game ticks. So according to game ticks, this is half of the amount of time that it would have taken if you were just going off game ticks for this thing to cycle around. But because of the big brain maneuver that is redstone, I'm able to give it some leeway by using an extra 2 ticks and an extra 1 tick. So as this fills up, this is powered, that goes down, and this observer can see all of the extra bullshit. All of the other copper bulbs coming down, etc. But this also counts down once this hopper here is empty. If this hopper here is empty, into this one, it automatically switches into restock, allowing this one to transfer back, while still allowing this to reap the benefits. Allowing oneself to do that. And now I'm starting to drain. And as we get closer and closer to the end, that turns off. That finishes up the cycle, and then we're good to go. And that's exactly where it's always been. The redstone rail line wires are my favorite thing to work with, especially when it comes to really compact machines like this, which I wish I could use the activator rails with the trap doors. That'd be really nice. Yep, here's me. Which is me right here. I was able to get my own head somehow. But now that I'm done explaining this, and halfway explaining that, time to give this the full picture by explaining the telecom lines. Push that in there. Let me grab myself spyglass. So this entire line here is the telecom line. This allows me and others to be able to have a way of communicating with a machine, or having a machine communicate with us. But why isn't it activating? Just right off the bat. because of my little filter here. Each of these decorated pots has 11 snowballs inside of it, allowing these comparators to have a signal strength of 10 for each dust, which helps lock other sensors from being yoinked. For about 10 towers, each of them is spaced with 18 blocks between the two sensors. So that would be 1 all the way through 19 right here, and then 20 would be the other sensor. Each of these only takes 12 redstone dust. 3, 6, 9, 12. To construct, these only take 12. And it gives you both read and write functions. Whereas if you were to use dust, you would need at the very least 15, 16, 17, 18. You would need around 18 blocks. And you'd still require more redstone dust just to send a signal. Not to mention all of the repeaters, meaning that your messages would be delayed. However, being as Skulk is able to consistently charge at 10 redstone ticks, all you need to do is flick it, and it sends to all the others. And then boom, all of your data is sent. If I were to, let's just bamboozle my way here. And let's just assume that this is exactly what we think it is. Go ahead and get a lever. So this is 10 redstone ticks. How to do this? It can send a consistent pulse through the entire line without breaking a sweat. Meaning that you can send basically a Wi-Fi ping if you try hard enough. But I'm using this part of it to help lock other keyboards. Now, what do I mean by lock other keyboards? Well, if I were to boot, none of these other keyboards would ever be allowed to function until this one finishes up. Meaning that even if somebody tries to connect, they're still not fucking able to do anything. And even still, this one is still active, meaning that these lights are all bullshit. With all of these other pieces locked, no other keyboard could ever send an input or receive another one's output. Meaning, and I do mean meaning, that you can have an isolated channel and you can have privacy. Meaning the only thing that could fuck with this is if somebody cuts those lines down. Or if somebody, decides to rewire yours so it goes into theirs, which is already hard enough. Because this entire thing would take scaffolding and dirt blocks and actual scaffolding blocks. And it would require them to go into the nether. Because that's exactly where these things are going to be going. Into the nether. Now, speaking of the Nether, why? Why the Nether specifically? Well, because of the travel distance between the Nether and the Overworld. 8 blocks in the Overworld is 1 block. No, not that. It's 8 blocks in the Nether. No, hold on. 1 block in the Overworld is 8 blocks in the Nether. No, I got that flipped around. My bad. It is 1 block in the Nether is 8 in the Overworld. I was getting my words confused. My bad. I have not slept enough. Anyhow, so with these capable and ready to send as much data as humanly possible, every 10 redstone ticks, we are able to send consistent messages over long distances and be able to expect a response within that same time frame. Meaning that the only thing that could complicate this is distance. But what's better than having short distance communications? Being able to use that with multiple keyboards. Meaning that this junction box here, this was essential in making sure that every single one of these were able to be protected. A single junction box, or at least a single junction box design, was necessary. It was mandatory, actually. All of these required one thing, and that is consistency. Because you can't have multiple keyboards stringed into one redstone dust line for over 200 blocks. That's stupid, and that's wasteful. Sure, yes, you can definitely make a redstone line if you have a phone. Go for it. But don't be surprised when your repeaters and your comparators and all that other bullshit starts becoming more and more and more rare for you. Once you start having to create a whole lot of repeaters, you're going to have to start creating a whole, and I do mean a whole bunch of fucking things. And you can't use observers, because observers are expensive. Now, yes, I am being hypocritical due to my, affiliation with observers. However, the telecom lines are meant to be used for a long period of time. Like, until we get something faster and cheaper than redstone dust, we're not going to be able to make much headway within the telecommunications department. Like, you can use quote-unquote wireless redstone, but the only true wireless part of it would be these little towers here. The scope sensors, specifically calibrated ones, are completely wireless, meaning that they require nothing at all except for maybe a signal to tune them. Once they're tuned, they're perfectly fine. If they're not tuned, cool. If you don't need to tune them, then that's great, because it means that you don't have to waste your time. However, once you've built one of these, and you take a moment to actually understand what you're trying to do with it, you'll fucking be capable of realizing everything else. Like why the keyboard is so slow to type. Because if you're using stealth sensors, you have to time everything down to the last game tick. With specific things like, let's say, sending data, the most that you would have to expect would roughly, and I do mean roughly, be signal transfer speed, which, as I said before, is not an issue. As long as it's timed to 10 ticks, fine. Perfect. Anyway, to sum this entire thing up, you have a keyboard, which uses a massive shitload of hoppers in order to filter out keys, send those key values that are used in trapdoors to mark them into walls, which trigger observers all the way down below, which triggers the rail lines to power on, and to trigger further observers into the external data inscriber. That inscriber, once it detects any kind of thing, will be able to auto bump it, providing us with plenty of space to type and breathe, and, fucking lots. With that keyboard finished up, it's able to go into a junction, which allows it to be able to be used out of potentially hundreds of thousands of people just anywhere at all. Basically requiring that one understands the entirety of the thing before they use it, or hell, even build it. With all that being said, I do appreciate y'all all taking the time out of your days to watch this fucking 48-minute long video. And I greatly appreciate y'all. Alright, I'll see y'all later.